what is beloved to Allah these days? If these days are beloved to the one who I'm submitting to, I have to take awareness, I have to take consideration, right? That there are no days more beloved to Allah that He be worshipped in them than the 10 days of Dhul Hijjah. We've just entered these 10 days of Dhul Hijjah, right? The season of the pilgrimage that we all recognize from our own experiences as being Muslim, that it is the 5th pillar of Islam, that Islam is built upon the five ending with the pilgrimage or the Hajj, right? That these days, recognized by these days, today, tomorrow, the day after, up till 9th of the Hijjah, which is Arafah, fasting every day of them is the equivalent of fasting a year. And so when we hear this, there's a lot to reap. There's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with, especially for us to experience these days. So don't lose this opportunity. That's how we have experienced Ramadan, these 30 days. MashaAllah, we've experienced a sort of change within ourselves. Now don't lose this opportunity with these 10 days as well, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is indicating. Right? Fasting every day of them is equivalent of fasting a year. That's immense. That's immense. Right? And standing every night of them in prayer is the equivalent of standing on the night of Qadr, the night of power, night of Qadr. Right? So these moments indicated of fasting, indicated of the prayers, the extra prayers, all that we can do. There's divine breezes, nafahat, as the scholars would say, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has designated these moments. Right? So take heed. Be aware of these moments, take the opportunity to do these, and recognize that these moments are not just a moment to rectify our relationship with God, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as the vertical kind of relationship, but also the horizontal relationship that we have with each other. The horizontal relationship that we have with the creation of God, meaning your family, your friends, your co-workers, the people next to you, the people behind you, in front of you. Think about how I can do them better. Right? Think about the rights that they have upon me and how I can do them better. Right? That's the beginning reminder that I want everyone to take away, inshallah ta'ala. What I wanted to also take away as well as we take these moments for Hajj, inshallah, is the story of Hajj and how it's very important to us as Muslims, and how, inshallah ta'ala, this will be a fortifying of the heart. That perhaps, many of the khutbahs that you have heard or the lessons, it always deals with us and our struggle as being Muslims, our journey of being Muslims. That Hajj, we see as an overview, is a whole journey in itself. Right? You bid farewell to those that are going to the pilgrimage. You see the documentaries of the Hajj of the past, where they have to bring their own cooking gear, and they're getting ready, and they're going on boats and ships. And even today, with the Hajj itself, it's a challenge, right? Just to accumulate the funding for that, and the journey itself, and all of that, right? Some lessons that I want to share, inshallah ta'ala, with the Hajj, and perhaps our experiences with it, is that one of the things I mentioned previously from the previous khutbahs is that when we see the Hajj, or when we even do the Hajj itself, that Hajj is a simulation of the day to come. Right? You think of all the people that are coming along. Right? You read the autobiography of Malcolm X and his experiences of how a transformation that he went through, a transformation of the heart, through just experiencing the ants of people that are there. People who are coming from all over. Right? And very particular, people coming from all over, but people for the men, in particular for the brothers, wearing the same similar garments. Right? The two ihram that we recognize, the two garments, the white. The simulation is perhaps a stark reminder for us for what is to come and for what is real. That the Day of Judgment, Hajj itself is a simulation of the Day of Judgment, that the two garments that we're going to be wearing at the very end of our own days, when we're buried 6 feet deep, as we said, وَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. Don't ever die, don't ever go out other than in a state of being Muslim. It's a stark reminder, this Hajj, that when we go out, we're going to be in a similar fashion of going out, in these two garments. And so it's to remind us of what is real. And when we're going on to that Day of Judgment, we know that it's just between, we're all collected, we're all gathered. But we recognize as well that it's just between me and Allah. Me and Allah. And what I come to realize, what we come to realize as well, is that this is something where I can't hide anything. I can't hide anything as myself. I have to come clean. I have to come clean. I can't cut any corners anymore. I can't shortchange myself. Right? I can't shortchange other people that I deal with. I have to come clean with my family. I have to come clean with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's perhaps the hardest thing. I can shortchange other people, perhaps they won't see what I've done to them. They won't realize I've cut some corners here and there. But at the Day of Judgment, when it's between me and Allah, when it's my heart between me and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that's a moment that we have to really reflect. Now, what have I been doing? Am I doing myself right? Am I doing my family right? Am I doing Allah right? This is something that we come to recognize, that Ibrahim alayhi salam, in his pleading, in his munajat, in his intimate conversation with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, after seeing the ills of the community, his father himself being an idol sculptor, right? The community of worshipping those beside Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And his following end of that dua is, he says, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. And do not disgrace me, O Allah, on the day that we will be resurrected. Because we recognize that Ibrahim alayhi salam is of the father of the prophets, right? Perhaps the originator of the Hajj that we see today. That he asks, وَلَا تُخْزِنِي يَوْمَ يُبْعَثُونَ. Not disgrace me on the day that we will all be resurrected. يَوْمَ لَا يَنْفَعُ مَالٌ وَلَا بَنُونَ. The day when neither wealth, neither any of the things that we accumulate, the things that we always strive hard and we obsess with, the cash, the money, the material things, when neither wealth nor children will be of any benefit. إِلَّا مَنْ أَتَى اللَّهَ بِقَلْبٍ سَلِيمٍ. That the only benefit that will come will be except only with those who come to Allah, who come before Allah with a pure heart. You have to come clean. For the Hujjaj that they're experiencing, inshallah, they are coming, and we know that the reward for them is as though they are a newborn baby coming back. And so we give them the honorific of Ya Hajj, Ya Hajjah. Right? It's an honor that they've experienced this. But for us here, that inshallah we'll experience the Hajj, inshallah ta'ala. But we can also experience a Hajj, a transformation of the hearts. That we are asking, Ya Allah, that we need to come to Allah, and we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala so that we are able to come to Allah at this very moment, or even until the Day of Judgment, that we come to Allah with a salim heart, a pure heart. And that takes a lot of digging. Right? And this is also recognized and embodied through the prophetic legacy of Prophet Abraham, through Hajj, peace be upon her, and through Ismail, peace be upon him. Right? Those two legacies, we recognize that when you have a clean and pure heart, called the Salim. I reflect on this as someone going through, perhaps when we see the atrocities that are happening on our own screens, that are happening all over the world, especially when we focus ourselves with Palestine, Sudan, all of the places that are going through oppression. Ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for liberation of the people in the world. Right? There's a sense of, what can I do? Last week's khutbah was about, when is this going to end? This moment is about, what can I do? I feel so paralyzed, perhaps. Many of us feel that I'm frozen, I'm shocked. Right? The people of the past with the Prophet, Zulzilu, that they were shaken. I'm frozen, I can't do anything. What can I do? Right? These moments of what can I do, very similar as how it was experienced by Lady Hajj, peace be upon her, when she was left, perhaps, and abandoned, right, with Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam and her son Ismail alayhi salam, right? So what happened was we recognize that, in the Quran it states when Abraham was given the instruction by God to leave Hagar and Ismail. So in the Quran, "O Ibrahim, where are you going?" Or in the prophetic tradition, "Where are you going, leaving us in this valley when there is no one, nor is there anything else around?" You think to yourself, a mother with her only child, alone in the desert, no help. Physically, you see there's no help. Right? Perhaps the people that we're seeing at this very moment, we see that where's the help? There's no help. No one's listening. Right? She repeatedly asked him, but he did not turn to respond. Right? Asking Abraham. And then he asked him, "Did Allah command you to do this?" He said yes, he replies. And then he says, he will not, recognizing who was the command coming from. And then she replies, then he will not leave us to be lost. That she had instilled within her a peace of heart and mind, that knowing this is coming from Allah. Similarly, with Ismail alayhi salam, and I'll end with here inshallah ta'ala, is the fact that we recognize that Eid al-Adha is coming along. Perhaps that's the recognition that, we slaughter a sacrificial animal in following the rite started by Abraham alayhi salam with his son Ismail alayhi salam. In that similar situation, Prophet Abraham was dealt with that. And then he was instructed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to sacrifice his only child that he wanted after many, many times. Right? And then the reply was that Abraham sharing his peace of mind, "Tell me what you think about this, that I have to sacrifice you." And the Quran is replied by Ismail, "O my dear father, do as you are commanded. Allah willing, you will find me steadfast." Recognize in these both replies that these were very prophetic, straight away. That perhaps someone would be shaken, what am I going to do? How am I going to respond at this very moment? Things are happening, how am I going to do? But then this was the response of Ibrahim's wife and Ibrahim's son, instilled through the Abrahamic kind of prophetic lineage. إِنَّا مَنْ أَتَى Allah biqalbin salim, that comes, except for those that come to Allah with a sound heart. As we see the sound heart coming from Hajj descending down to Ismail alayhi salam, and inshallah towards those that we see as living lessons from the people of Palestine unto us. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for sound hearts for us to be tranquil with. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive us, to forgive our families and our communities. Seek Allah's forgiveness at this very moment, at this very time. Alhamdulillah wa kafa wa salatu wa salamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. As we end, inshallah ta'ala, I wanted to point out some practical points in this Dhul Hijjah, this 10 moments, this 10 days, especially with the day of Arafah, that we can implement, inshallah ta'ala, and conceptually fortifying ourselves that we recognize that in terms of not being able to do, think about the mother and her child in a barren desert. Think about the very moments when the child is helpless. And think to yourself in your own situations that there are moments that I'm powerless. I can't do anything. I'm paralyzed. One thing to recognize is that this is the moment that we recognize that we are truly to Allah's. That Allah wants us to recognize that we are truly powerless. أنت القوي ونحن الضعفاء إليك. That we recognize that Allah is the one that has power, the source of power, and that we are truly weak. This is how we should turn to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. أنت الغني ونحن فقراء إليك. That you are the one that is truly rich, that is not in need of anything, that we are truly poor, that we are in need of you, Ya Allah. So these are the moments that when we recognize that we are paralyzed, that we can't do anything. Recognize that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the all-powerful. And what did Hajar alayhi salam do in her powerlessness? She ran. That's all that she could do. As a mother, worried for her child, she ran, looking for help back and forth. Perhaps that is what we can do. The sa'i. And whatever we can do, right? So 3 things, inshallah, to help for us in these 10 days of the Hajj. Number 1 is take the opportunity, recognize that these 10 are divine breezes, opportunities by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that Allah blesses us with for our own benefit in drawing closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as everything is multiplied. Right? And Allah help us in doing the things that we perhaps are not able to do, to the things that we can do. So some of the things, number 2, is to think, as I said, vertically and horizontally. When we think vertically, think about our relationship with Allah. Either dhikr, subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah, wallahu akbar. It aligns us to be with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as how the prophets of the past, as how the righteous of the past were, as how the people of Palestine are. We see that living as a lesson for us. So think to that as your vertical. On your horizontal, how am I doing with my brother? How am I doing with my sister? What are the things that I can do to better my relationship with each other, with my community, in my workspace, in my social circle, right? What are the things that I'm doing horizontally, right? Don't cut corners, don't shortchange, because we recognize that this moment is a moment to simulate ourselves in the day of judgment. We're all collected, that my heart is being seen by Allah. I don't want that tainted at this very moment, at these very days. Right? And number 3, with all the things that are happening, you do what you can. You do what you can. Because Allah sees what Hajar alayhi salam was doing. Allah sees what Ismail was doing. Allah sees the people of Palestine and what they're doing. And they're doing what they can. Right? We do our part, and Allah sees. Allah sees. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to help us in doing our part. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the patience and perseverance and steadfastness of the likes of Ibrahim alayhi salam, of Hajar alayhi salam, and Ismail alayhi salam. We ask you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to give us the fortitude that has been given to the prophets of the past and the righteous of the past, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, in the moments that we are in barren deserts, that our hearts are willing to do what we can, Ya Allah, and seeing that we are seeking this salim from you, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to give us pure hearts, to give us sound hearts, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to keep us reminded that these moments are moments for us to be gathered on the Day of Judgment, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to bring us to justice, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to keep our hearts pure and untainted, Ya Allah. We ask you, Ya Allah, to cleanse the illnesses and sicknesses of our own hearts, Ya Allah, Ya Allah. We ask you, Allah, for forgiveness for our families and our communities. We ask you, Allah, acceptance for our families and our communities. We ask you, Allah, to allow us to do good. These 10 moments, these 10 opportune moments, these 10 days of the Hajj. Ya Rabbil Alameen, help us, Ya Allah. Wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa aqim as-salat.
الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمد رسول الله